welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. It's not magic, it's math. What does that mean? We're going to find out here in just a minute with my very special guest, Matt Foster, CEO and founder of Freight Science. Matt, welcome to the Hot Seat.
I appreciate you having me, Spencer.
Well, before we heat things up a little bit, sir, let's just start with giving us a little bit about yourself. Just take 20 seconds. Tell us about Freight Science, what you're doing there, and that'll get us going.
20 seconds is tough. So Freight Science, we're a decision science platform for specifically asset-based carriers. Our exclusive emphasis is on truckload providers. And really what we're focused on is helping them make better decisions by integrating advanced analytics into their existing workflows. So everything from which freight do they accept into the network to which asset and driver do they put loads on is really where we're focused.
Well, like as you said in our little warm up going to this, there's so much going on, so much that we can talk about. But let's start with some headlines. Last quarter, pretty significant transaction for your team, Freight Science, taking on investor with, who is it? FinTop, and our neighbors right down the road at Nashville. So obviously they're pretty excited about what you got going on there. What kind of spurred that partnership there, and what should we expect from you guys moving forward?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was there's a lot of eye-opening moments when you're raising capital, and the diversity of the people that you speak with is pretty extreme. And when we met with Joe Maxwell, Chris Haley, and some of the folks over at FinTop, there was kind of this immediate, I think we both had this feeling of this is a good fit. And what I really liked about that firm is that, one, those folks are former operators. We were real transparent with them. We kind of got this Midwest sensibility, and sometimes to a fault, we're overly honest about things that we shared with them. What our opportunities and challenges and struggles were, and everything was completely relatable for them. And then I think the part that really drove the relationship home was, and it's kind of the serendipitous, but Joe himself, growing up, worked as a lumper in West Virginia. And it's not many times that you'll run across somebody who's leading one of the largest fintech VC firms in the country, who not only knows trucking, but he also has worked on the dock himself. So he can very much empathize with the opportunity within the industry.
Well, I can't wait to see what you guys do together. So let's talk about it. I teased it. We talked about math, not magic. What does that mean? What's actually happening? There's so much data, more data than anybody knows what to do with. So tell us about how are you kind of creating and leveraging this math through your platform in a way that it's creating value for the truckload industry?
Yeah, and the math not magic thing is a tagline that I'm sure that will retire at some point. But the reality is what we're trying to state with that is that the black box approach to advanced analytics, or what people are referring to as AI, doesn't necessarily work. And what we're trying to do is build enough transparency into the models themselves so people understand this isn't some magic. It's based off of how best decisions are made, best practice, and then all you're doing is putting it in mathematical formulas for people to work through. To your point of there's a lot of data in the industry, there sure is. But I would say that there's more bad data than there is good data. And I think that's where the industry itself has the largest opportunity, is the data quality in the truckload transportation industry needs a lot of help. And for us to do the things that we need to do, while we have a fantastic data science organization, we also have an amazing engineering organization that gets that data in a state that's analytic ready. And for us or anyone to do the things that they want to do, you can't ignore the importance of having quality data.
So I want to understand like the practical execution of this. Just studying it up on how the platform works, and you just kind of mentioned it a moment ago, which is you take the decisions of your best people, and then you add some augmented intelligence to help ensure that that takes place all the time. Did I explain that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think we spent well over a year just shadowing processes and understanding how people actually made decisions in the industry. And there was a lot of really clear observations that came out of it. And one is you can't be another screen. There's so many point solutions in this industry, which actually cause more frustration from the user than anything else. Where there's some neat technologies that are coming out, but if I have to toggle between 7 or 8 different tabs to make a single decision, life didn't get easier; it got harder. And
Hmm.
more data doesn't necessarily lend itself to better decisions because you're just looking at a variety of different data points. So what we've done is built a system that ingests all the critical data from sources like EDI, from the telematics devices, from the ELDs, and then even into some of the TMS. And we fit right in the existing workflow for the users. So we've aggregated between 7 to 8 former screens to just be a one pane of glass where they can now work from. So they work faster, they work smarter, and ultimately they make more profitable decisions for the companies that they're working
Hmm.
for.
I think that's pretty fascinating. So, on a recent hot seat episode, your group received some high praise from our friend Tom Albrecht over at the Reliance Partners. And so, obviously, he's aware of a lot of different things in terms of emerging technologies and understanding how that impacts the industry. What is it about? What do you think? What is freight science doing that's getting his attention from a differentiation standpoint that maybe other emerging technologies are not hitting on right now?
Um, that's kind of a tough question because we can't really speak for the entire market and what they're doing. But from our standpoint, our focus from day one has always been the same, and it's the focus on asset-based carriers. And we have a model that is completely transparent around helping them win. And really, our value is by generating revenue and profit for these organizations. For so long, a lot of the optimization stuff that's been in the industry was always focused on cost out. And we're kind of on the front end of the workflow, which is about what revenue and what profitability can you bring into the freight network. So I think that that's fundamentally different from a lot of ways that people have approached optimization historically.
Mhm. So you've been in the industry for a while in multiple capacities. So what are you seeing in terms of um, a lot of times when you see emerging technologies, it has to do with emerging risk as well and disruption. And so what are you seeing as the biggest threats to the trucking industry right now?
That's a good question. There's a whole variety of stuff that's going on. There's kind of a perfect storm brewing, and you not only have all the demand fluctuation that is common, but you've got all kinds of new competitors coming into the industry. You've got the kind of growing footprint of brokers and what people will call to the digital freight brokers. But I think the thing that stands out to me as the most concerning is what has happened to the cost structure for asset carriers over the course of the last couple of years. Uh, Everyone knows that used equipment costs have gone up, insurance costs have gone up, the driver pay has gone up, and just the overall cost to operate an asset in this industry has ballooned so much that I don't know if shippers truly appreciate what that cost structure looks like. And being able to defend the rates in a market where spot rates are so low, but large carriers have increased their cost by so much. That's the one that concerns me. And in addition, in the last 2 years, because volumes were so high, there was a lot of overhead and staffing that was done for these companies to manage a lot of freight that was coming into the network. And speaking with one of the former CEOs that we used to work with, he made a comment that really resonated with me from day one, which was we have to hire more people to turn down the revenue because you still have a fixed amount of capacity, but you're just taking on more volume and more people to manage it. And those are the things that concern me is with the ballooned operating costs, the increased headcount, are we going to be
Right.
able to sustain rates and remain profitable?
No, I think that's a terrific insight. So let's transition over just in terms of big picture state of technology in the truckload space. What are some of the things that you see as far as trends and where we're at, where we're going?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about, I mean, you've got this full spectrum again. You've got everything from autonomous vehicles and autonomous trucks. But when you get down to it, a lot of the basic blocking and tackling stuff from how to manage your own business is still very, what I'll lovingly refer to as contingent. You've got a lot of 1980s green screens. You still have early 1990 .NET apps. And the challenge is that the lack of integration and the lack of the willingness of the providers to play together to provide kind of a comprehensive solution to the trucking companies. So,
Mm.
the opportunity to see is one, vendors playing nicely together and working together and figuring out commercial structures that can increase collaboration and then also provide more value to our mutual customers. I think that's an enormous opportunity to still miss. You've got fantastic tools that are coming out from ELD perspectives. You've got a bunch of different point solutions that help with pricing, with brokerage, but getting them all to play together nicely is a real big challenge. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the stuff that is really fascinating, I think, to everybody, which is what's going to happen with autonomous. I think we're still ways off. I mean, my personal belief is we're in the 5 to 10 years before that becomes really mainstream. The thing that concerns me there too is the cost to start going down the autonomous path, and who's actually going to be able to stomach
Right.
that cost and play in that game. And the things that are most interesting to me right now is what you see your CHRs, your Uber Freights, all those folks who are partnering with companies who don't want to be a seller of autonomous vehicles, but who want to replace the trucking companies themselves and run on these digital
Mhm.
platforms. And I think that it's really fascinating to see when you even have trucking companies who are working with some of these firms and essentially training them on how they could reposition or compete with their business. So I'm on the sidelines of that one, but it's really interesting to watch play out.
No, I agree. Very, very fascinating. So I want to go back to, this element of this augmented intelligence combined with some of these human decisions. And I'm really interested, based on you guys have been doing this for about 2.5 years, what have you observed about company cultures that have been accustomed to having these 6 to 7 screens or whatever it is, and they're trying to figure out, and now maybe some key decision makers are being relieved of that workload. So how is it affecting the culture and just the functions within a company once they have access to that technology?
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's a case study in change management. When you go
Mm-hmm.
into an organization where people have been using a system for 30 years, there's some people are really excited about the change, and then you've got some of the people who are adverse to what's coming. Uh, but at the end of the day, when people realize that you're actually giving them more power and more control back over their job, uh, they get pretty darn excited about it. When you talk about freight acceptance in a lot of organizations, even the people whose job it is to accept freight have to ask five, six, seven other people if they should accept or reject a load. And it's just incredibly inefficient and requires a ton of rework.
Wow.
So giving them the control back just to do their job and know with complete confidence that they're making the most profitable decision for their business, but also honoring the stuff that they committed to their shippers, it's really empowering. And I think that one of the things that I'm most proud of at Freight Science to date was in our very first customer, the CIO sent us they use WorkHound for employee survey engagements, and they sent us the
Mm-hmm.
screenshots of all the feedback that was coming in from the CSRs and account managers, and it was the stuff like, and I kid you not, I'm now not afraid to take a restroom break because I'm not going to worry about missing freight. Or I'm just so happy that I can go home at 5 o'clock every day, or I'm not working the weekends. I feel like I finally have power again. And those things, from our standpoint, were just, I mean, that's the stuff that just keeps you going. It's really exciting when you can help people actually have a more enjoyable work experience.
No, I love that, and love Max and the work that he's doing over there at Workout. Of course, he's a former hot seat contributor as well, and I mean, I think that's a great example of just, and that's why I'm asking. I think that's a great kind of lens into the realities around having this kind of technology at your disposal and how it affects culture. So where our worlds intersect quite often in the M&A side of things is I'll give you an example. Just recently, we had a client that engaged us to divest of one of the most profitable divisions, which obviously we're like, hey, we're happy to do it, but what's the angle? What are we trying to do here? And the angle is because that they felt that they needed to multiply and significantly make capital available to develop technology, digital transformation to be a more sustainable business for the future. And so I'm curious from your standpoint. I'm sure folks are coming to you and they're trying to make moves in that direction. What advice do you give to folks that know that they need to make investments to become more relevant around technology, but they don't really know where to go? What are some of the recommendations you make?
Well, I think you just have to really take a hard look in the mirror of who you are as an organization and what your core competencies are. And the going down, and if you're bringing in other technologies and other providers, I totally understand that. But if you're doing net new builds, uh, it really needs to be, and not to overuse this word, but innovative, or it needs to be something that's differentiating for your industry and your competitors. And with the differentiating stuff, you can even do that with legacy or with existing technologies. You just need to use it in a different way. But I think, going and all of a sudden saying, hey, we're going to be innovative or we are going to start developing our own thing is a massive shift, a massive undertaking. And in the truckload industry, I'm not sure that people go into it eyes wide open with not only the risk, but the expense, the amount of change to resources and people that you're going to have to do, and a complete different look on business processes. So I think if somebody's going to go down that path, I would highly recommend that they have somebody who's taken other companies through it to help shepherd that experience, so they know what they're getting into. But it's a big lift.
Well, no disagreement here. So I got one last question, a little bit of a wild card here for you, Matt. So you're in Las Vegas, you're out on the golf course, and you are hand picking your foursome. You've got three choices, and you have three tech moguls to choose from. Who are you putting in your golf foursome?
Well, I mean, tech moguls. That's fascinating. Uh, I think if we're picking tech moguls, we're probably not going to be trying to be real competitive on the golf course. But I would take, I think there's a ton of lessons to learn from. I'll take any of your former Fame company folks. This is going to be a little bit debatable, but I mean, Zuckerberg would be really fascinating, for better or worse. I would really love to get into, uh, I think, somebody like a Sergey Brin, the people who started at Google, to see, because their early day stages and the way that they went about growing that organization was really fascinating. And then obviously you can't leave off people like Bezos. And the things that are fascinating with me about those groups isn't necessarily the work that they've done, but what they did to scale those organizations. And that stuff is just tremendously fascinating. Going from, you see the pictures of Bezos working in his office by himself with basically a handwritten Amazon thing on the wall, to what it became today and how big of a change that is. Those are the stories that I'm really interested in at this point for freight science.
Well, I love that. Hey, you're on your way, sir. We appreciate you sitting here within the hot seat. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. I'm extremely excited about all the things that you're doing at Freight Science. That's going to do it for us here in the hot seat. We will see you next time.